In case you missed it yesterday, we do have another co-host now on Mikasa Tsukasa. And that co-host is Samira Khan. She was Miss New Jersey 2015. She's an analyst for RT. She's also a columnist, and I can't remember what publication right now. Don't be mad at me if you're watching. I think she's busy right now, so she's probably not watching. Absolutely brilliant speaker, brilliant mind, foreign policy expert as well. Great person. If you didn't get a chance, definitely go check out the Tim Black interview that me and her did with Tim. We'll be doing about 2 shows a week, one live and one pre-recorded. And also I'd like to welcome Gorilla Truth to the team as well. They're going to be doing some recording from Standing Rock, from campsites for to fight against the whole pipeline situation that's happening around the country, and also going to be reporting on just issues that females deal with on a regular basis. It's going to be from a female perspective about these issues and their, things like that. So it's going to be a good time. I'm really excited about both of them. I'm really excited about, me and Samira teaming up. It's going to be a great time. So with that out of the way, I feel like we need to have a conversation about this whole impeach Trump movement, because I really feel that many people have not thought this through. And it's more than just the usual argument of who we get next, which that's a pretty important thing to bring up, because Pence is a big step down for those who aren't aware of. If they think that Pence is somehow a step up, and then the other people who are like, well, let's just impeach the whole administration. That's not real life. It's not going to work. It's not how these things work. It's not how they've ever worked. Like, we haven't even successfully done impeachment that resulted in a removal in the history of politics. Okay, the closest we've gotten, I think, was Andrew Jackson or Andrew Johnson, one of the two. I think it was Johnson, and then of course we had Bill Clinton. But there's a few problems with trying to get rid of Donald Trump, and we're not thinking about this at the level that we should be thinking about it. So let's talk about how we got to Donald Trump to begin with. The reason that we ended up with a Donald Trump is because Bernie Sanders should have won. He should have won the primary. We're very aware of this. He had it stolen from him. We're very aware of that. Via election fraud, via drop registrations, registration switches, collusion, illegal collusion with the media, Debbie Wasserman Schultz doing whatever she could to suppress him with the debate situation. I mean, there's God knows. But the end of the story is we do know that Bernie Sanders should have won. And because of that, there was a huge pushback by the progressive community. And that pushback was, there was several million, which they don't ever want to talk about. The estimate was about 14 million people. And that's just like a small estimate. Left the Democratic Party, and then some people were still in the Democratic Party who refused to vote Democrat and refused to vote for Hillary Clinton because of what they did to Bernie Sanders. And some of them were simply waiting until after the election to make sure that they weren't unable to vote when that time came to vote in the general election. So that's like a lot of people. And the people left in states where the Democratic Party is already dwindling. But what that allowed us to do was make a huge statement, because Donald Trump was then elected to office. But more importantly, if anything, Hillary Clinton was completely and totally smacked by Donald Trump. They want to say he stole the election. Bro, to steal an election, the election had to be a little close. But when you just get completely and totally obliterated, I don't give a damn if Putin did interfere with the election. At that point, you were going to lose regardless, because Hillary got caught trying to steal votes in places like Milwaukee County in Wisconsin, and in Detroit, Wayne County in Michigan, and she still got beat in those states. So even after she cheated, she still got destroyed. But the reason why she got destroyed is probably the most important thing to focus on, which is that the truth of the matter is Donald Trump galvanized a group of people that really make up the majority of Americans. Working class, they're lower middle to poor, a lot of those people liked Bernie Sanders, in case you didn't know, and they were all tired of the establishment. For once, no matter if you were a progressive or if you were a conservative, but just a conservative who was tired of the establishment, for the first time in history, the establishment lost. Now, whether that would have been Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders, with a victory by either of those candidates, the establishment loses. And so, in a sense, we win. Why? Because the establishment becomes untouchable, or it becomes antsy, because it seems like candidates like Donald Trump, and it's not just Donald Trump, it's also Bernie Sanders. Both of them are seemingly untouchable. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter if Bernie, comes off as a sore loser because he's marching around the country, spending all the DNC's money on this unity tour, or Trump, who's just constantly being portrayed negatively by the media. It doesn't matter. His voter base isn't going anywhere. If he ran right now against Hillary Clinton again, guess what? He would still win, because of everything that Hillary Clinton has done. So, with that being said, he is essentially your trump card if you are a progressive or if you are tired of the establishment. Why? Because if you impeach him, you now put Pence in charge, and you have given the establishment you've not only given returned power back to the establishment, but you're going to be stuck. Because, to be quite honest, Pence isn't that likable of a guy. He's not really, he's not really impressive as a politician. In fact, he's kind of a bad politician. He didn't do a good job in Indiana. People are convinced for some reason that he did, but he was a pretty shitty governor. So he would lose against just about any Democratic Party member. But Trump, on the other hand, would not lose. In fact, he would probably smack. If the Democrats have been doing internal polls, and he's still pressed to smack just about anybody they run against him, except for Bernie Sanders once again. And perhaps even Tulsi Gabbard. But they haven't ran a poll with Tulsi Gabbard yet, because they don't want to know that outcome, because I think we all know what the outcome would be. It would just be utter destruction. So, with that being said, if you get rid of Trump, you now put the power back into the hands of the establishment, and now the establishment is no longer pressured to make radical changes to healthcare, to make radical changes to education, to make radical changes to the to the system that's perpetuated racism and the patriarchy that has still given women issues trying to break through the glass ceiling. They are no longer pressured to do these things. That is why the establishment, CNN, MSNBC, and all these people who make all the money, keep screaming, impeach Trump. They want the power back. And they know that if you are dumb enough to scream out, impeach Trump with them, they will now have the power back. They know they can beat Pence. It wasn't Pence who broke all the Republican voting records in the primary. It wasn't Pence who increased Republican voter turnout and registration into the Republican Party. It wasn't Pence who utterly obliterated every other primary candidate to the point where it wasn't even close. It was Donald Trump. Reasons why we can talk about all day. But it wasn't Pence. Pence can be defeated. If he couldn't be defeated, he would have ran for president. But he didn't. The same reason that Tim Kaine isn't going to run for president in 2020. Because it wasn't Tim Kaine who could literally cheat his way to the top. It was Hillary Clinton. Okay? So, with that being said, stop perpetuating the removal of the only thing that is keeping the establishment in check. And that thing right now is Donald Trump's presidency. For those who keep saying, but what about Russia? Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to need you to read news other than CNN and MSNBC. Because Newsweek has already reported that the FBI tried to bribe a hacker to take the blame for Russia. It wasn't them. We all know the situation that's going on surrounding Seth Rich right now. Whether it's 100% true or 100% false that he was killed by the DNC, I think one thing is perfectly clear. He did leak things to the DNC. We're about 90% sure that he was one of the leakers. And we do know for a fact that there were several other leakers because an associate of WikiLeaks, Doc talked about documented times when he came to DC from Europe to meet them at a particular location to receive the leaked information. So we know that it wasn't Russia. Second of all, there are a lot of states that only have paper ballots. You can't have paper ballots. Like, you can't do it. The elections are controlled at a precinct level, and to say that Putin was somehow able to hack the election is absolutely ludicrous, because then you're admitting that at every single level, at every single state, Putin was able to enter the splinter cell. And that says more about how shitty of an election, election integrity we have than how successful Putin is actually was at hacking the election. And he's not that good. Presidents who've cheated in the past couldn't even achieve something like that. So I doubt Putin could do it from that far away. It's reality. I hate to break it to you, but it's not true. The reason that they are focusing on Russia so much is because, like today, there was a headline that said Trump caught Comey a nut job and said he was relieved that Comey was fired because they can get off his case about Russia. I think that's a pretty valid statement. If someone was constantly trying to frame me for doing something he knows I didn't do, I would want him fired too, and I would say it was also a relief. Like, Trump is an ignorant asshole. We know he's a moron. We know that he's dangerous in the sense that he is somewhat of a neo-fascist. That's true. But let's not give the man more credit than he's due, because once again he projects himself to such an extent that he's easy to stop when he takes it too far. We've seen it happen since the beginning of his election. He is not what is dangerous. This Congress is what is dangerous. But even still, this Congress is also something that you could be using to your advantage, because how do you think that Congress is still in power? That Congress is in power because Trump galvanized a bunch of Republicans and conservatives to come out and vote. And if Trump's not in office, the world isn't going to gather around President Pence. It's not like nobody's that excited about Pence. And so, yeah, Democrats in key positions will be able to start fighting for their seats back, and they will no longer be incentivized to work for you. I don't understand why you all are in such a rush to get Trump out of office only to have the establishment, the deep state, back in control with no incentive to do anything that you're asking or demanding of them. Because that is the only thing you are getting when you get Trump out of office in the way that they are trying to. Because you have finally proven to them that we can control the narrative. They're going to believe whatever bullshit they tell us. We can convince them that Bernie Sanders did not have the election stolen from him. We can convince them that Trump actually colluded with Russia, even though the narrative makes absolutely no sense. The fucking connections are nonsensical and non-existent for the most part outside of his business connections. And like they say, they convinced you all that Comey was anti-Hillary, then pro-Hillary, then pro-Russia, and now he's a savior that got fired. And they convince you also that the special investigator is going to be a nonpartisan investigator. He's going to be nonpartisan because if he's part of the establishment, you can be part of either party. So you're going to lose. If Trump is impeached, understand me, you will lose. That is game over for us. And I'm not saying that because I want Trump to remain president. I want him to be beat. I want the shit to be beat out of him in 2020, but by a progressive. We have to do it the right way. The conclusion is not as important as the methodology. It is not as important as the process. If we keep skipping steps, like Hillary Clinton tried to do, we skipped a step in democracy. We know Bernie Sanders should have won. And when we skipped that step, we ended up with Donald Trump. If we keep skipping steps in democracy, we will keep reverting back to the establishment and deep state control, and then we also keep ending up with Donald Trumps along the way. It's that simple. Trump is your trump card. No pun intended. Okay, there might have been a little pun intended, but I didn't realize until after I finished the statement. That's besides the point. Okay? Trump is your trump card. Progressives. And even anti-establishment conservatives. If you want to be listened to, you keep the promise. Okay, don't listen to us. I promise you, their pockets and their position and their ambition is more important to them than keeping the establishment intact. I'm telling you this because they eventually will say, because this is how self-interest works. They will eventually say, you know what, Nancy Pelosi, you know what, Hillary, you know what, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I get what you're saying, but if I can't win office, and these oil companies and these pharmaceutical companies and so realize this, what would be the point of me running? Because I'm just going to get beat. Because you know what's going to happen if I keep losing and they keep losing and y'all keep losing. They're not going to waste time and money paying me an unbeatable candidate after the people have made it perfectly clear that they're not going to vote for me. They're just going to overwhelmingly pay Republican candidates to smack me in the face over and over and over again. And at that point, I don't have a job, I don't have a position, and I'm broke. So eventually, people's interests start working against them and for us. That is how you win in politics. Eventually, Bernie Sanders figured this out, obviously, which is why he's stomping around the country. Because eventually, he knew at some point all of this would come and bite them in the ass. And guess what they're doing right now? They're on their knees groveling to the same man that they kept down for so long. We don't need an impeachment. What we need is a revolution. And right now, everything's in disarray. All of politics is in disarray. And this is how you create a revolution. Whenever politics has become discombobulated, whenever the leadership is scrambling the way it is right now, just they're coming at you with crazy headline after crazy headline that actually makes no sense if you actually read them. If you read them critically, you're like, holy shit, I can't believe this is a headline. Okay? Stop trying to impeach him. Stop retweeting shit about it. Stop pretending like Trump is so much more horrible than Obama was. Obama was a better speaker. Granted, before Obama was president, amazing human rights activist. Actually, he's done a lot of great human rights activism after presidency. But as a president, Obama is not that much different than Donald Trump, policy-wise. Like, you saw how quick Donald Trump just left those rockets off the chain as soon as the situation in Syria happened. Obama would have just waited another 5 hours to do it. That's the only difference between Obama and Trump in that sense, okay? So I know Republican Congress sucks. I know Republican Senate sucks. Everyone who's dealing with Republicans in Republican states, I know it sucks. Donald Trump sucks. But what do you think is worse? Because if the establishment takes back over, even if a Hillary Clinton or a Cory Booker or even Elizabeth Warren to some degree get elected, your states are still going to be Republican. You're still going to have shitty health care. You're still going to have no jobs. We're still not going to be working on dealing with this environmental issues that we're having. Everything will stay the same no matter who's in office, except for your voter ID laws might get better. That's about it. I'm not exaggerating. California is still, they have Medi-Cal. If you don't know what that is, it's like a universal health care situation. And they're about to expand the Medicare for all, even with the Donald Trump presidency. New York has been doing amazing things as well, even with the Donald Trump presidency, which goes back to what I was telling you all from the very beginning of this election. There is nothing going to change at the state level. New York is not going to become Alabama because Donald Trump got elected. California is not going to become Mississippi because Donald Trump got elected. The South, unfortunately, will have issues that become more exacerbated. But you know how we fix those things? We get a progressive in office who allows for more education, which we know is directly correlated with racism, which is directly correlated with job creation, which is directly correlated with better health and more healthy opportunities. We get progressives in office We get a progressive, and people keep saying, well, we don't need to gather behind one person. I'm sorry, I love you progressives, but y'all fucking suck at gathering behind issues because all of you all think your issues are the most important. But no, we can't get anything done like that. And since we can't gather behind money, we can't gather behind a singular issue or a singular identity because our diversity is a good thing and a horrible thing at the same time. We have to gather behind someone who most generally represents all of our passions and all of our values. And that could be Bernie Sanders, that could be Tulsi Gabbard, that could be anybody, Jill Stein, but we have to at first acknowledge that impeaching Trump is not the answer. Sound good? I think it's pretty good, right? Sounds like a pretty solid plan. Revolution. Stop trying to do things through a system that's flawed and is working against you. We need a revolution, not an impeachment. Pence is not better. Thank you for watching. For those of you who just joined, my Patreon is above. Pretty simple. I am trying to do this full time. And the more people who donate to me a month, by the way, we're at 40 patrons for $230, $240, $250, something like that. We're over to like 240 and we're at 40 patrons now. We're doing extremely well. I'm so honored that you all enjoy watching me that much. But I want to do this full time, and the more money we get donated monthly, the more videos I can do for you all, the more time I'll have on my hands, the less I have to work on the side, and the better information I can get to you. So go to the Patreon link. It's above on my page. You can see it at the top of the page. I'll also post it in the description after I'm done with this video. And thank you all for watching. I'm going to post this on YouTube as well. So you'll see a link coming within the next 2 hours. Have a good afternoon. Peace.